G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Stuff, Ukraine War Update for the 17th of March 2026. I'm your host, the author, David Applegate. And as we look at the Ukraine map today, I can tell you there's a lot of old markers there and some new ones, but there's a lot of more of the same. Now, yes, we have fresh attacks on Kiev and Kharkiv, and Dnipro and Zaporozhye, and a hell of a lot of attacks in Zaporozhye, particularly clustered around here. These glide bomb attacks, they call them minis. They're still the equivalent to 500 kilograms, not pounds, kilograms of explosives. So they're close to 1,000 pounds of explosive equivalent. They're actually smaller because they are rocket fuel, basically, with a detonator. They are basically highly volatile. Sometimes they're called vacuum bombs because when they go off, they create a vacuum around them, a brief such a force of explosion is, well, technically not a vacuum, but no oxygen to breathe. It's just literally just the force of the explosion, which collapses in on itself, creating a secondary explosion of anything. And then basically you might get additional explosions from any explosives in the area. But you've seen when a building goes up, the shockwave passes through it. It just powders the concrete. Whatever the shockwave generator is in most explosives, of course, is the explosives themselves, compounded by the atmosphere. But there is, particularly in Russia, nuclear theory of generating these explosive shockwaves using sound. Now, that has not reached any stage that we can see where these shockwave generators are being used on the battlefield, nor do I think they reach the level of technological threat yet, but they are something that's being worked on. I believe it's in Russia. It's called the Devastator. Now they're using the shockwave they're using is a microwave pulse, and it's used to knock out drones. But they are working on an audio pulse, and yeah, it's basically it sits on a tank. It goes ping, and it's a anti-explosive device. Basically, yes, a technological force field. That is correct. But rumors of this Devastator and that have been around for years, but now we're actually starting to see the Devastator appear on Russian small boats there. And Russia and Iran are redefining the Navy, and of course, big ships are now more interdiction operations, cargo ships, etc., where and they're vulnerable. Everything's vulnerable to drone boats, but the Russians are, again, like I said, They are working on lasers, and they do have an operational laser. I think only 3, whereas, one land base and 3 airborne. US have airborne lasers, and now a couple of shipborne lasers. But the Russian lasers have been decommissioned, and now they're looking at the Devastator, a microwave weapon. Now they have a few other anti-drone technologies. But right now, the drone and artillery war is frozen. They are unable to unbudge the Ukrainians being the Russians. The Russians are unable to unseat the Ukrainians. Their drone attacks every time the Ukrainians can evacuate before they arrive. So the casualties are often zero. Often casualties are incidental because the drones are either shot down, or the majority of drones are shot down. There's no doubt about that now. But the expense is starting to take its toll on Ukraine. And they are, even with their interceptors, they are desperate for the Iran war because they want to sell these drone interceptors. Now, I think they will get enough customers, but you can't make billions. The billions shortfall ain't coming, right? It ain't coming. They might make, $3 billion a year? Maybe. That won't make up the 127 other billion shortfall, will it? It won't repay their loans. Ukraine ain't repaying their loans. They're trying to extend this war. Remember, Ukraine would be gone long ago if it wasn't for Europe. And again, a lot of it is also the USA. But what do you really gain from it? Weapons testing is straight up what comes to mind. And so far, Russia is now appearing to be ground to a halt. Now, right now, they've only made small gains in one particular area, and most of the front is frozen. The Ukrainians have claimed to have killed 930 Russians. But you've got to remember, the Ukrainians are losing 2 to 3 times that per day. They are outnumbered, outgunned, slowly being worn down. And by the looks of it, the Russians are in no hurry to press their advantage. And the Ukrainians are not cowards, but they're not pragmatic people either. And you may think, oh yes, they're stubborn, they'll hold on to the end, the resistance. But what did winning the war cost? We're still paying the price of winning World War II. Allegedly winning World War II. Now, again, most of Russia's gains are outside of cities. They have not taken any city or major town. The gains are only minimal. But they have made small gains outside there, but not inside towns. So for now, Ukraine's flexible defense is starting to work, and the Russians are not able to unseat them. Now they have hit a lot of targets, and I know, right, over the last week they made gains here, made sudden gains, but again, maybe it'll be another week or two before we see if they've made any more gains here. But they've been unable to unseat the Ukrainians here or go around them and cut them off. They've been unable to cut them off at Turnvente, which was clearly their target. Now they're having to go around it to try and cut off the... And they've made small gains here, but again, to clarify, they've had a frozen front here. The more you look at it from a distance, the more it appears, other than here, that most of this is following a natural border of the landscape, that Russia's picking land that's easy to defend, high grounds with long visibility. And it may fit in with their geopolitical strategy of turning Ukraine into a buffer zone. Because you may not believe this, but Russia believes you're the aggressor. You're the ones who are going to be invading them, particularly Poland. And remember, the Warsaw Pact, right, was bigger than the Russian army. Okay, yes, it had Russians in it. It had only 1 million Russians in it. But still, it had a bigger army than Europe, and it was a bigger army than, right, and that was predominantly Ukraine, Poland and Romania, right, and Belarus. Those four nations put together a bigger army than Russia in the Warsaw Pact, right? 5,600 BMPs, 10,000 T-56, another 5,000 T-72s, and from 1950s to nearly the 1980s, it was the largest army in the world. China did only increase, there were individual countries with bigger armies, Iraq had 1 million, China had 1 million, but they together had 1 million, and Russia had 1 million. Now, Russia's up now nearly to 2 million, but these guys can put together 2 and then add another, and then add the rest of Europe and the UK, and you've got 2 to 3 million. There is no advantage, and no advantage is good, okay? You may think, oh, yes, USA #1, but no, you do not want to. You do not want to be the technological terror. You just want the slight advantage. The slight advantage, though it may create forever wars, will not create a big, devastating war against you. And again, one of the issues, and this is why Europe hates Russia, is that Russia can churn out missiles cheaper and faster because Europe is a corrupt conglomerate of greedy psychopaths. I should say sociopaths. Psychopaths would be going to war. Sociopaths. Sorry, you're correct. All right. Here we go. Now, there's not much to this, but this is a large air-to-air missile. They think, oh, yeah, well, long run. It is pretty much for shooting down transports. This is a Su-30. Each Russian plane has its own weapon set, right? You've got interceptors, like 27, 30, 57. You got the 30, which is obviously also a interceptor, but you got the MiG-31, which technically a fighter, is more and more increasingly used as a missile, high speed, to deliver high speed missiles, air to ground. Su-30, long range missiles, no short range interdiction. Su-30, 25 and 35, short ground attack. They are specializing, and the Yak-130 is a trainer. They've cut a lot of aircraft out of their arsenal, and they're shifting Tupolovs. They're keeping the Bear. They are shifting the Tupolovs to the slowly to the 160. That's what it looks like from pilot view. And they hit the target. They have a range of missiles, of course, as you can see. That's what the standard. Airborne hunter. But they can, and they are based on ground launch S-400s. Now I know, I can imagine right now, a lot of people are saying, well, technology is not doing Iran, as the S-400s. That technology is not doing Iran any favours. You're correct, but remember, the technology in Iran wasn't made in Russia, it was made in China, cheaper. And right now, of course, even the Russian technology in... See, you got the Russian technology in Ukraine. So, Western fighters in Ukraine are not trouncing the Russians, yet Western fighters in Iraq are trouncing the Iranians. So, the weakness in the defense system is, and I think we don't know how much they're holding back. Yeah, it's the Chinese radar. But I have a suspicion, as I said, they can hit, this is what they're for. As you can see, it's a long-range missile, so it's got the double, so it's got the extra rocket. It's just a bunch of pictures to say they've been around for testing this missile for a while, they are basically showcasing for export, who their only customer right now is India. China's not buying Russian equipment. Everybody knows that now. And a lot of countries for the last 10 years haven't been buying Russian equipment. Now, everybody knows that there's a panic in China right now. There's trouble in Cuba. Iran is exposing just how bad. Pakistan has turned to buying US equipment again. Sort of. They bought French planes, some American equipment, ground radars. Now, Ukraine is pumping out propaganda that they claim to have thwarted a Russian offensive plan for March. But it's all about, hey, this is why sanctions are important, blah, 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 support us. This is all propaganda to get you to think that Ukraine is so wonderful, so fantastic, and keeping you safe. They're not. This is sophistry. Look it up. All they did was say they thought it, right? It's like me saying, I stopped all the elephants from crossing the Delaware. And you're going to go, what? Well, do you see any elephants in the Delaware? And that's it, isn't it? Now, Russia did not. Now, you could say Zelensky's operations. No, it was not Ukraine thwarting. Okay, the sanction package and see, it's all about getting you to give them the billions of dollars. Okay, if it wasn't for failures, if it wasn't for Venezuela, America, in Venezuela, in Iran, right? If it wasn't for American pressure on Russia, there would have been a major offensive. It is the US who has stopped Russia, not Zelensky. Zelensky would be wiped out if it wasn't for Trump telling Putin specifically that he is not to attack Zelensky. Despite the fact that Ukraine has attempted to kill the Russian president by sending hundreds of drones to Moscow, although they're mostly shot down over Belgrade on their way. Now, Kiev has blocked access to the Hungarians' access to the pipeline. This is an escalation. This is cut off oil to Slovakia and Hungary since January 27. In response, they have stopped electricity and diesel supplies to Ukraine. And, well, the Slovakians and Hungarians are now considering sanctions against Ukraine. They've blocked a $90 billion loan, but apparently some banks are going to do the loan anyway. The EU want to put together a different package for individual packages from individual countries. And they want to sanction Hungary to pay the bill. This is all planned to isolate Hungary and Slovakia and Serbia. Anybody who doesn't 100% obey the EU is going to get the kid, the mean girl treatment. A couple of mean girls. They're going to take turns bullying. That's what the problem, right? When you join a club, is eventually all the other members just want you to conform. There's no democracy. Democracy is two wolves deciding what to do with the sheep. And Hungary is realizing that it has no voice, it has no representation. It is nothing but a club member, right? And what's the point of being a member of the club when the only thing you get from the club is a club over the head? Well, that's what a club is for, isn't it? Right? It's literally what a club is. It is a battering ram, a metaphorical battering ram, to just basically club people over the head into submission. Russia's denied that it was the one who attacked it. Ukraine claims that it was Russia who attacked it, but they won't let Hungary see the pipeline, which means we all know it was Ukraine who's been stealing oil from the pipeline. Now, this is childish at best, right? Poland claims a real threat of leaving the EU. Why? Because they went to get a loan of $44 billion and it went to Ukraine. But they don't want to say that it went to Ukraine. Instead, they want to blame Trump and Hungary and Poland is warning that it's a catastrophe and vowing to do anything to stop them. This is what children do. They catastrophize. I didn't get my way. I'm going to hold my breath. The world is coming to an end. And they start setting fires because they didn't get their way. Now, Western officials have alleged that there was a spike in NATO spending, about $800 billion in Operation Rearm. This is the Fed's spending. This has taken it to 5%. Moscow claims any plans of an invasion is nonsense. Right? And again, the threat is from Warsaw. Right? And again, Warsaw is suffering its own internal problems, where the anti-Ukrainian, anti-war factions have joined together with the farmers to block Ukrainian food imports. And Donald Tusk is accused of him, right? Tusk is claiming it's the farmers' union trying to push him out of the EU bloc, and the farmers are going, why not? They screw us over. And he says, the opposition accused Donald Tusk of trying to push Poland out of the bloc, saying, every time you don't get your own way, you threaten to leave. Well, we support your decision to leave the EU. Do it. So, Tusk isn't the right-wing leader Poland hoped for. well, he's not either. He's not the leader Poland wants. He promised and has failed to deliver on anything reasonable. The EU is forcing Poland to take in Ukrainian food, despite the fact that it's not EU certified. A lot of it is contaminated with, I forget the name of the chemicals, but this is, the residue from war has contaminated all the food in Ukraine. It's not suitable for human consumption. But what do? They redefine fit for human consumption. So the EU rules don't matter. EU doesn't have rules or standards or ethics. Now, Russia has claimed the EU of ignoring peaceful overtures from China, talks on Ukraine, predominantly US, Russia. Apparently France was involved and they got kicked out, but they were in Turkey and later UAE and later Switzerland and later were to meet in Florida. Instead, I believe they had phone calls. Now, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Petrov has said there's a pause. The Americans have other priorities. It's understandable, he told the Financial Times. He added that Russia is open to a peaceful resolution regarding Ukraine. The dynamic in the front for positives. He says that we're closer to achieving our goals, but we're open to a diplomatic settlement. So they're not worried about the situation on the front. They are not particularly worried about expediting a massive offensive to capture on Ukraine. No. See, again, they keep telling us how Russia's a threat to Europe, and on the other hand, you look at the war maps, and it is not a threat to Europe. Now, Russia and the US have a long history of striking pragmatic deals. Now, a French representative is in Russia to try and talk him into leaving Ukraine, and he got laughed out of Moscow. Europeans don't help. They don't have anything positive, and all they want is to get their own way all the time. That's not a pragmatic solution. Russians like a pragmatic solution. You offer them, right, a deal. I think, however, right now, it does appear, and has several times, that Ukraine and Russia take turns at not accepting deals. Now, again, I think it does sometimes appear to be childish. I'm not going to deny that Putin had opportunities to end this. I've pointed out many times where he could have actually gotten his way and didn't. He could have bypassed Zelensky. My guess is Russia has a lot of things in the works, and they are using this war to root out intelligence operations inside of Russia. So there's a greater national security concern. That they are not concerned about the Ukraine war so much anymore. People have made up their mind when they're going to live. All the people in these zones here, they're either gone, waiting for the Russians, or left for Russia. They're not going to stick around. There's going to be no Russia. There's going to be no pro-Russian this side of the border anyway, right? Not especially in Ukraine, the who has nothing but murderous contempt for their fellow humanity, right? They cannot separate the ideology or the goals or anything. No, they are simpletons at best, psychotic at worst. They want this war. There's no doubt about it. But one of the mechanisms, and I do blame America and Europe for this, one of the mechanisms preventing the end of the war appears to be the post-war mechanisms. Ukraine went to hell in a handbasket. Europe never did anything. They stood by and said it was Russia's responsibility. Russia tried to get Ukraine to clean up its act, and they deny. There's literally the only way to save Ukraine is literally to go in there, put a gun to the corrupt person's head and shoot them, because they'll never admit they're wrong. They'll always deny they're innocent. They're absolute corrupt. Nobody wants to admit this, but they're so belligerent. They are so their criminality and ego and identity, they take everything personally. Man, you're a crook, right? You're caught. Just accept it, go to prison like anybody else. No, they've got to have a song and dance act. They got to jump around in their little tracksuits, having a scream and a song and a dance how they're persecuted, right? Or they do what most Ukrainian crooks do. They run to a non-extradition country the moment they're released on bail. And, you know, it seems to be a common theme in Ukraine where they'll accuse someone publicly, they'll run away, and then that's it. There's no manhunt or nothing. They even let them transfer the money out of the country. I mean, before accusing someone, it's like their anti-corruption body just exists to play politics. Now, when they finally had prosecutors who were prosecuting people, what happened? Joe Biden stepped in and got the prosecutors fired. So, it's not all Ukraine's fault. There is this resistance around the world in the liberal establishment to solutions. They don't want solutions. Why? Because solutions aren't profitable. Problems are profitable. You can't have consultants and problem solving and committees if the problems don't exist. So that's why Ukraine is so welcome in Europe, because it gives them problems, right? So thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and please support the channel. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.